Welcome to Collecting and Organizing Univariate Data. This is 3.1, and this is the beginning of our one variable stats part of this unit. If you haven't yet, please go through and read through the vocab terms on this document. They are generally highlighted in the yellow boxes. You can see some exercises here that we will get through, but the vocabulary is something that you need to make sure you are familiar with. We're going to focus in this video and the next few videos on how to use your calculator to calculate all of this. So you see a bunch of formulas here that are good to be familiar with, but not necessary for exams and that sort of thing. You need to be comfortable using your calculator to complete these calculations. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at three different data sets and calculating these basic things, doing a little interpretation, and again, making sure you get comfortable with your calculator. So in example 3, we are going to take this data set and we need to get it input into our calculator. So in order to do that, we are going to go to stat and edit, option number 1. So stat, enter, and then I need to enter this data into a list. I'm going to do that by typing on my keyboard. You can fast forward through this part if you like, if you've already typed this data in. By the time I get done typing it in, it's a good idea to double check in the end once you've typed it in. All I'm doing is typing in the number, hitting enter. I could also do this with my calculator and type in, so 160, enter, 216, enter, 225, enter, and 238, enter. So let's double check here. It says the number of ice creams sold over a period of 13 weeks is as follows. So each of these represents 1 week and the number of ice creams sold in that week. And I can see L1 has 13 values input, and the 13th value is 238. That matches what I see over here. I'm just going to scroll back through quickly and double check those, make sure I typed them in accurately. If you type in or mistype a single value, the rest of your calculations will be thrown off. Okay, so here we go. We have the data input into our calculator into a list. So again, that was stat, edit, first option, and L1. Notice it's under L1. So now my calculator will give me most of these calculations that you see on this page here. And so let's go ahead and get into doing that. I'm going to go to stat, and this time I'm going to scroll to the right once, and then option number 1, one variable statistics. That is something you need to be comfortable with doing for this class. So list L1, that is the list that I typed my data into. If I needed to change that, I could hit the second button, and then any of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. You can see the blue little L1, L2, L3. That's how I would change to a different list. So L3, there we go, but I have it in L1. So second 1, there's no frequency list. We will get to some of those that have frequency lists, but at this point, there should be nothing here. Go down to calculate, and then we have a whole list of things that we can then type into our document here. So mode, right? So the mode, let me see here. If I scroll down and I look through, I don't see a mode, and that is one that does not, your calculator does not give you. So if I just quickly scan through my data, I can see 158 appears 3 times. And let's just see, double check. See 147, nope. 225, nope. So 158 is my mode. And that is not actually given to me on my calculator, but the rest of this, most of the rest of this is. So this X bar, right, that's the mean, the average. Right? So remember, take all the values, add them up, divide by the total number of values, which is 13, and that is 171.30, so on and so on. So 171 to 3 sig figs. Standard deviation is sigma x, 30.83, so 30.8 to 3 sig figs. My minimum, you notice I just keep scrolling down, is 146. So my data set minimum is 146. My Q1 is 150. That is the lower quartile. So that means 25% of my data falls at 150 or below. The median is the middle, right? So median, I can see is right there, 158. Upper quartile or Q3 is 188.5. I'm going to just write that all out because that is the exact value. And the maximum is 238. And then I have a couple other calculations here that you notice is not listed on my calculator. The range is simply taking the maximum minus the minimum. So 238 minus the minimum is 146. And this is just an easy way to get an idea of the dispersion of your data. How spread out is your whole data set? And it's spread out over the range of 92 values, right? So from 146 to 238, the range is 92. The interquartile range is simply subtracting Q3 minus Q1. So 188.5 minus 150. And that is 38.5. And the interquartile range gives us the range of values that the middle 50% of my data takes on, right? So the middle 50% of my data falls within a range of 38.5 from the lower quartile to the upper quartile. Okay. So remember, ranges, the smaller the range is, the more compact your data is, the closer your data is all together. The larger your ranges are, whether it's the range or interquartile range, the more spread out or dispersed your data is. Standard deviation is another measure of dispersion, right? It can tell you, it compares how spread out on average is your data compared to the mean. And so this standard deviation value is 30.8. That means your data, the larger the standard deviation, the more spread out, the farther away your data lies from your mean on average. So the 30.5 is pretty large. So a large standard deviation means the data values tend to lie farther away from the mean, right, from the average, right? So let's go ahead and get back to the mean or average calculations. The mode is just the most frequent. So 158 occurs 3 times. It is the mode, right? So simply the value that occurs the most often. The mean is simply the average, right? So add them all up, divide by the total number. So 171 is the average value. The mean can be affected by very large and very small values. So if you notice in my data set, I have 3 larger values kind of compared to the rest of these. So the mean, right, so in this case, 171, the mean is affected by the 3 larger values, right? So it kind of distorts my mean a little bit, it makes it larger. So if I were to take those 3 values out of my mean calculation, my mean would actually be a little bit smaller, right? So the mean is affected by the 3 larger values, or in general, the extreme values, okay? Especially if you have a lot of extreme values. The minimum, nothing really to say there. Median, the median, so half of the data falls above, in this case 158, and half falls below 158. So half of the data is 158 or below, the other half is 158 or above. So it gives you the literal middle data value, right? So you put all the data values in order, you find the physical middle value, and that is your median. Half of your data then is above that, half is below that. Okay. So at this point, we will take a look at a couple more examples here, but in terms of the calculations that we can make, most of those will come from your calculator. So you need to be proficient in using your calculator.